Clemson beats SMU 34-31 to win the ACC Championship. They get a walk-off 56-yard field goal to get the win. And SMU, man, it's even crazy that they even tied this game up in the end, because when they were down 24-7 at halftime, I'm going to be honest, I was tweeting up a storm saying how they didn't deserve to be in the 12-team college football playoffs. They were Indiana 2.0. And then all of a sudden, they come back down from a 31-14 deficit to start the fourth. And then all of a sudden, I'm saying to myself, SMU is really about to win the ACC Championship this way? Have we truly seen the fall of Clemson football under Dabo Swinney? Like, I had so many takes that I was ready to fire off when SMU tied this game up, just for Clemson to get a big return off the kickoff. The final 16 seconds puts them in range to get that 56-yard game winner, and Clemson now punches their ticket into the CFP. And it's been a while since we last seen Clemson in the playoffs, and Clemson could be a little bit of a sleeper team in the playoffs. They do have a pretty good offense. Cade Klubnik has played really good this year. This was probably the best game that I've seen Cade Klubnik play in a game of this magnitude. For the majority of Cade Klubnik's career, anytime he's played up against a remotely good team, he's always struggled. But tonight, he played pretty good. 4 touchdowns, no picks, 262 passing yards. This was a really good outing by Cade Klubnik. But SMU, they kind of dug themselves in the hole early in this game. They had 2 turnovers. They had a bunch of penalties. They were just shooting themselves in the foot. But in the fourth quarter, I don't know what Brett Lashley said to get this team motivated, but the defense was locking up. The offense started moving the ball down the field, and all of a sudden, it goes from 31-14 to 31-31. And at that point, with all the momentum that SMU had, you were pretty confident that they were going to win this thing in overtime. But I give it to Dabo Swinney and Clemson. They were desperate to not only win the ACC championship, but to get back to the playoffs, because Clemson, after this game, they showed that they still are a elite program. Because as ugly as their loss to South Carolina and Louisville were, and when they got blown out by Georgia week 1 of the regular season this year, this was one of those games that kind of was a defining moment for where Clemson lies in the hierarchy of college football. Because when the playoffs got expanded from 4 to 12 teams, a program like Clemson was thought of to be an automatic lock into this thing. And for their season to go the way that it did, and you end on a sour note to South Carolina just to get the news that Miami loses to Syracuse, and you got to get ready to play in the title game a week from then. This was really a game that I was using to figure out just what is Clemson now. Are they still a program that can compete for a national championship, or are they no longer relevant from a national standpoint? Are they just going to be one of those teams that we always reminisce about what they used to be when they had Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence? But the Dabo Swinney's credit, they dug deep and they found the way to pull off this win. The fourth quarter was really when they just played their worst football, because for the first 3 quarters, they just dominated SMU. SMU didn't even look like they belonged on the same field as what Clemson did for the first 45 minutes of this game. I mean, they were obliterating them up front. SMU just couldn't get out of their own way. I was thinking we were watching Indiana versus Ohio State Part 2, just with different uniforms and different logos on the side of the helmet. But, I mean, when Clemson got that big return, my heart just broke in pieces for SMU, because I really wanted SMU to win. I love Brett Lashley. I really hope that Miami ends up hiring him to be the head coach of the Canes in the foreseeable future, because Mario Cristobal is not it. SMU played a fantastic game. For you to come back down 31-14 at the start of the fourth quarter shows a lot about what you are as a football team. Now, can they win a national championship? Probably not, but depending on who they play in the first round, if they got to play Indiana or Arizona State or somebody like that, I like SMU. Brett Lashley is one of the best coaches in college football. Do y'all not know what he has done? He has resurrected a program that used to be a powerhouse back in the 80s, back in the 70s. SMU used to be running college football. But then they ended up getting the death penalty because they were illegally paying players, and at that point, with how down SMU has been since then, I never would have thought that they would ever get to a game like this. They would ever be playing on a national stage in the ACC Championship. And this is their first game in the Power 4 conference, by the way, in the conference championship matchup. Last year they won the American, and then this year you were probably saying to yourself, SMU's a solid team, but they probably are going to finish with the 8-4, 9-3 record. But they just completely overachieved and they exceeded expectations. And moving forward, although they lost this game, it hurts not to be walking away with that ACC title. It gives recruits a reason to start looking at SMU as a legitimate program to play for, because SMU pretty much has a team full of Miami's leftovers. All the players that Mario Cristobal and that program felt weren't good enough to start at Miami, Rhett Lashley took in, and he's gotten the most out of them. Rhett Lashley pretty much is winning with Miami's JV squad pretty much, and it's a testament to how good of a coach Rhett Lashley is. Do you not know how many good adjustments had to be made for SMU to crawl back into this game? Because they were just getting absolutely blitzed up front. It was a complete mismatch on the line of scrimmage. I was texting one of my homies. I was like, dog, SMU doesn't even look like they belong on the same field as Clemson. They look like an absolute fraud. There's no way you can put them in the playoffs, and then they come back, make it 31-31, and yeah, they lose, but you still got to put them in. You still got to put SMU in. And we're going to get into the SMU over Alabama playoff argument shortly, but I just want to double back around and give some more kudos to Clemson for winning this game, because, look, it's not about how you win. All that matters is that you end up winning and you get back to the college football playoffs, a place that Dabo Swinney has been so desperate to get back to. And after the game in the interview, he was talking about how, he did it the right way, not using the transfer portal, not cutting guys. I salute Dabo Swinney, because it's easy for you to switch on your morals when you see it working for everybody else. But Dabo Swinney does have a pretty reasonable logic for not using the portal. And I think it's one that most people should admire, which is that he wants to be an honorable head coach. He never wants to cut a player that he goes into a recruit's living room and promises that recruit's parents that, hey, I'm going to take care of your kid, just to cut him because you want to open up a roster spot to get somebody else from the portal. When I was at FAU, you know how many players ended up saying that it was probably the end of the road for them because they were forced to transfer because Tom Herman said that we didn't have a spot on the roster for you? Nobody really thinks about what goes into getting guys out of the portal behind the scenes. You only have so many roster spots to where, if you want to get a portal guy, you got to kick somebody on your roster to the curb. You got to force them to transfer. And Dabo Swinney just doesn't have the heart to do that. And that's admirable. You feel me? Like, even though you may not be good enough to start, you promise that kid that you will help develop him. And as long as that kid wants to continue to be a part of your program, he puts in the work every day, he shouldn't get his right to, earn an education, earn a degree, and play football as long as he's doing everything necessary to do so to contribute to the team's success. He doesn't have to be a starter to help contribute to the team winning. If one guy goes in, he could step in and be a really good replacement. One man's misfortune is another man's opportunity. I respect Dabo Swinney for his stance on the portal. Do I agree with it necessarily completely? Not all the way, but I understand where he's coming from, because if I was a head coach, I probably would do the same thing. I don't have the heart to cut a player because he isn't starting, he isn't good enough just so I can replace him. If I'm as good as a head coach as I believe to be, such as Dabo Swinney, I should be able to help this player develop and get him ready for the next level. And if you are a high school recruit, after, hearing Dabo Swinney's stance on the portal and, him being able to win this conference once again when everybody was bashing him for not using the portal, I would want to play for Dabo more, because I know I have a coach that genuinely cares about me. I have a coach that when I commit to play for him, he's not just viewing me as another player. He actually views me as family. He actually has my best interest at heart. If I'm a parent of any recruit, I trust my son in the hands of Dabo Swinney. He's an honorable Christian man, and I like the fact that he stands on his morals. He's not going to bend to what everybody else is doing. Why do you think Nick Saban retired? He couldn't handle, after losing to Michigan, right after the game a day later, he has 20 players lined up in his office saying, hey, I need a raise. That's not what college football is about. College football, at its root, is still about helping to develop young men reach their potential. And I don't see how anybody can ever get mad at Dabo Swinney for that. That's a really honorable thing, in my opinion. So, as much as I wanted SMU to win, and they did ruin my parlay by winning this game, Clemson, I'm happy to see Clemson back in the playoffs. I hope that Clemson makes it back to the national championship again. You feel me? I love Dabo Swinney and, his honorable stance on the portal.